Hello. Today we will be ranking all 13 of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. Now, this might seem a bit out of place because it definitely isn't my regular content, but these are currently, and I assume will be for a long time, my favorite lineup of books. Every time a new book out of this series comes out, I immediately buy it. And after I'm done school, because most of the time it's in the book fairs, that's where I usually buy the books. After school, will immediately rush home, go to my bed, and just read it, because they bring me so much joy. And even if some of your favorite books are at the bottom, I still love them a whole bunch. Even the last one, which I felt was quite a bit away from the other ones, I still do love. It is an amazing book, and I just want to stress that all these books are amazing. So even if your favorite book is at the last place, it doesn't mean I don't like it. Alright, well, with that done, let's get started. Alright, so the first, or I guess last spot on our list, if you will, is The Getaway. Now, I understand this book is actually pretty highly rated compared to the other books. Not like the other books are low or anything, but this book is definitely one of the higher ones. But personally, this list is, in my opinion, I think this is the worst book by quite a long shot. Because, personally, I prefer when the main point of the book doesn't really take up too much time. Now, that might sound weird, and I mean, it kind of is, but think about it. Some of the best moments in these books are when Greg Heffley is doing stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the main plot point. And when you have something like this, where that's basically the entire thing, it becomes a little and it seems that you're really taking away from the entire thing. And you might say, what about The Long Haul? And you'll see for the same reason that it is relatively low on my list, but it got higher because the main plot point doesn't take up as much space as The Getaway does. Next, I want to talk about The Third Wheel. Now, overall, this book is just boring. It doesn't have much to do with it, and the main thing is basically just Greg trying to get a date and messing up miserably every single time. And it doesn't make much sense that he continuously goes after it, because this is a common theme throughout every single book, so it doesn't make sense for it to have its entire book just to itself. It really is a lot more boring than every other book, even The Getaway, which wasn't too great on comedy either. So it really isn't as funny as the other ones, and really is just more boring. We're going to talk about The Long Haul. And I don't have much to say about this one because I've already made most of the reasons why it isn't as high as the others when I was talking about The Getaway. So basically, the one thing this thing does better, or I guess two things, is number one, it is funnier, and number two, the main plot point doesn't take up as much time. Those two reasons, in my opinion, make it better than The Getaway. And I've already talked about why having a plot point that doesn't take up as much time is better, in my opinion, at least. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Hard Luck. Hard Luck is a book that is kind of similar to The Last Straw, or I mean, the Third Wheel, sorry. Except, in my opinion, it sprinkles a little of that, luck bit into it, and just does everything better. But the little sprinkle of the luck bit might be a bad thing, in my opinion. It's kind of the opposite of The Long Haul, where it seems like he does get the things that happen in here is just too outlandish. So I guess it's similar to The Long Haul, but I guess in a different way. It's not like what happens to him is necessarily good, but it's not the same kind of, that's not going to happen. In both ways, it seems a little outlandish, but I feel this one does it a little better. Alright, now we kind of have a split in the list, because the one that goes here is Double Down, but I don't have Double Down. It's the only one of the books that I don't have, so I don't really know what you're going to put here, but Double Down is kind of a weird book. I feel like you basically put old school and just switched it up a bit so it isn't really about being old school but still has the same vibes of it, and just made it slightly worse in every way. I know that's a weird thing to say, and they aren't really similar, but I feel like the quality of them, it just isn't that far apart. But this one's just a little worse. Obviously I haven't read this one in a while, so I don't actually really have much to say about it. So it's really just put here based on how I enjoyed it the first time I read it, which I think, unlike the other ones, is actually the only time I've ever read it. So, yeah. Once again, don't know what you're going to get here, but yeah. And now we're going to talk about old school. Now, the great part about old school is that this is probably the only book that you could show your parents and they would genuinely enjoy it. Because it's managed to be a book that can entertain literally any age. It is the perfect book if you want to have a book that's long and funny, but that everyone can enjoy, no matter their age. Because it really talks about the differences between, our age and then, the parents and then the grandparents. It puts it all into one book. And it's really good if you want to have a nice book to read, no matter how old you are or who you are. It is a great book for that reason. However, against every other book, it kind of falls flat a little bit. It's kind of good. It's really good. But against the ones that I'm going to have before this, after this, it isn't as good. But it's still very good for what it does. Now we have an interesting one. I'm going to be talking about Dog Days, Cabin Fever, and The Last Straw all in one. Because in my opinion, these three books are just so amazing in their own way. They are the third for The Last Straw, the fourth for the Dog Days, and the sixth for the Cabin Fever. That's their installment. And every single one of them is very, very good. It's very hard to rank these, which is why I'm putting them all in one. I do have a ranking for them, and that is The Last Straw is the worst out of them, then The Dog Days, and then Cabin Fever. However, I felt they were too close to spread apart. I feel like they all need to be put in one, because each one of them is so amazing, and really quite a big step up from old school, that I find it hard to put them all in different ones. You have your ranking for what you want, but I do believe that they are all extremely similar in their quality. Dog Days is really cool because the family finally gets a dog. And dogs are awesome. I'm a dog person. I love dogs. It gets a major bonus from that. But it is also really creative with the way it takes about things. Now, most of these books go through what is probably about a year, which is weird because just like Ash Ketchum, he doesn't age. I think in Roderick Rules, he talks about going into the 7th grade, and that's it. It's like he's in the 7th grade for every year after that. But Dog Days is basically just based around the summer, which means you really get to learn about what happened throughout the summer, which means it can really go in depth. Cabin Fever is kind of the same, and it mainly focuses on that winter part, but I do believe there is one story that does that better, and I feel like you know what it is. But that's also very similar. And The Last Straw is another yearly one, but I felt that this is probably the best version with exclusion from 1, and maybe even 2, that are just focused around the entire year. It is still very good for what it does. However, I do feel like I do prefer the other ones since you can go more in depth about what they are all about. But The Last Straw is still very good. Don't mistake that. Now we're on to The Ugly Truth. Now, most people think that this book is actually on the lower end. But I, on the contrary, believe otherwise, and not even for its main plot. As I've said before, I don't really like when the books focus too much on the main plot, but really all the side things that are going on. Greg is usually kind of crazy and really thinks of himself as better, but in this book, he kind of tones that down a bit. He kind of realizes that everyone's good, and he really stopped being so, I guess, annoying in a way about how everything needs to go his way. And that really helped set the tone for the book, and I felt it was a lot more enjoyable because of that. But yeah, it's all these books are good, so it's not that like Greg is necessarily annoying. It's just he was kind of a little too, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but yeah. This has gone on for too long. It's a good book, and so are all the other ones. Alright, here it is. In my opinion, the second best Diary of a Wimpy Kid book is the original Diary of a Wimpy Kid. This book is the definition of a well-rounded Wimpy Kid book, as it should be, as it's the first. We perfectly get to experience the winter, the summer, the spring, the fall, the school, the non-school. It's perfectly well-rounded in every way. And even though it isn't focusing on one part, it still feels like it's super connected, and everything that he does is really well explained. So I couldn't think of a more well-rounded Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. However, it only takes second, because one thing beats it. And, alright, here it is. According to me, the number one best Wimpy Kid book goes to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Meltdown. I talked about it a bit in the Cabin Fever when I was talking about that, about how I thought that there was one book that did that a little bit better, and this is that book. I felt it was really cool how originally the book was talking about how there was no snow in winter, which everybody thought was really weird. And then all of a sudden, tons of snow came down. And then it was cool how it mixed in a bit of the old school bit where Greg's dad was talking about how he used to always go outside and play in the snow for the entire day. And he would make these forts and throw snowballs and have like snow wars with other kids. And then Greg ends up doing it. And it was also really cool how it continuously connected each other. It started out as just a battle between Greg. It was just a battle between Greg and Rowley, and then nobody else, because nobody else came. But then when they came back, there was everybody on his neighborhood or whatever, and then there was more neighborhoods, and then there was the street, and then it was like the Hill Street versus the like Whirly Street kids, and it continuously built onto each other, and it got so far where kids were literally asking to leave because of how long this went on, and I felt that was a really cool way to end the book. So there, in my opinion, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Meltdown is the best Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. Goodbye, and hope you enjoy.